Vancouver Whitecaps back at home against the Portland Timbers this evening, and well, they lost 3-0 the final. Not a good performance, especially the second half. We'll get into that. The English Premier League had some interesting results. Goals galore in one match. Good evening and welcome to Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on CIL 650 in Vancouver. My name's Tyler Green on Twitter at Tyler Green FC. Also available online at www.cil650.com. Thank you for listening to us, whether that is live or on the podcast here in the Barber & Co. studios. The first half kickoff is brought to you by KO, Kevin O'Toole, and findaproperty.ca. Want to sell your home from someone with a proven track record? We'll hit up Kevin. Full details at findaproperty.ca. That's Kevin O'Toole, licensed realtor with Prudential Sussex Realty, online at findaproperty.ca. It was a very big game this evening for the Vancouver Whitecaps versus the Portland Timbers. Mauro Rosales looked very good. Really showed his high soccer IQ. Waston looked to be a dominating physical force. Was on the ground a lot, but looked fairly solid, especially getting away from his man who was covering him on set pieces for the Whitecaps. It looked dangerous on that aspect. And that's about all the positives I could come up with from the match this evening, as the Whitecaps were downed by Portland 3-0. Defense was overall poor. Jordan Harvey had a rough game. There was little to no offensive output, and Portland pretty much dominated the second half as they went on to beat Vancouver 3-0 and jump ahead of Vancouver in the Western Conference playoff standings. The Vancouver Whitecaps now out of the playoffs. So, yeah, not a lot of positives coming from that game. We're going to get into the match in the starting 11, which is coming up in just a few minutes. As well, in the second half of the program, we'll hear some audio from the locker rooms as well. Simon Fudge will rejoin us on the program. He'll join us in the starting 11 very shortly, but a little bit more in-depth about this Whitecaps match in the second half of the program when Simon returns. Over in England, the Premier League, Chelsea and Everton. It was a very exciting 9-goal match that entertained fans purely by some defensive mistakes. Of course, the game was hated by Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho. Manchester City slip up. Manchester United still don't win, but they get a point, so I'm sure they're celebrating that. And Swansea continue to roll and are one of the top teams early in the Premier League season. They are literally about a quarter of the way from securing their spot in the Premier League for next season. Around 38, 40 points is usually the over-under of staying in the Premier League or getting relegated, and Swansea is pretty much already, they have 9 points. They're pretty much a quarter of the way there, continuing to be a top team in the Premier League. But will it last? Well, we will have a conversation with Bobby McMahon about just that. Bobby writes for Forbes magazine, Soccerly, contributes on Sportsnet, and that is coming up at about 10:30 this evening. Tonight's Barber Poll, presented by barberandco.ca. What can the Whitecaps realistically accomplish this season? Are they a playoff team? Right now, just outside the playoff bar. The Voyageurs' standings, winning that for the 2014 regular season and a spot in the 2015 CONCACAF Champions League. Right now, they're tied with Toronto FC. Toronto FC has a game in hand. Can they win the Cascadia Cup? Seattle in the drivers, well, they have the most points right now in the Cascadia Cup standings. or none of the above? Tweet us your thoughts with the hashtag BarberPoll on Twitter at SoccerTalk650 or Tyler Green FC. You can also email us at soccertalk650@gmail.com, or you can weigh in on the phone lines at 604-280-0650. As well, you can always comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SoccerTalkVan. The Barber Poll, brought to you by Barber & Co., Gastown, Yaletown, the Financial District, and Cambion 18th, on Twitter at Barber & Co., or visit barberandco.ca. That's barberandco.ca. Well, quite frankly, it's been brutal for the Vancouver Whitecaps. The Whitecaps just 2 wins through July and August. They've managed just 11 points out of a possible 30. The Caps are, to say the least, struggling. And it's just not good enough to, 1, to make the MLS playoffs, and 2, even if you get in, doing anything in the Major League Soccer playoffs. I'll get more into that in the manager's rant today at 11:10 this evening. You're listening to Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk right here on CL 650 Radio in Vancouver. Get into Kia Vancouver only at Kia Vancouver. Free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and get this, free lifetime airport parking and shuttle service. Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon, KiaVancouver.com. All right, the Whitecaps, it was a poor game. We all know it was a poor game. Simon and I are going to discuss some of those points in the next segment. Simon Fudge, of course, from Goal.com. He is at BC Place, just coming up from the locker rooms, covering the Whitecaps, of course. We're going to debate some of these Whitecaps issues in the starting 11 next.
Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTalk650 and at Tyler Green FC. This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on CIL 650.
The 2015s have arrived at Kia Vancouver, so come score a 2015 with ultra-low weekly payments, 0 down and 0% financing for 84 months, or a huge clear-out deal with up to $7,000 in cash rebates on select 2014 models with their no-bull pricing. But hurry, limited time offer at Kia Vancouver, Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon.
And remember, only Kia Vancouver gives you free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and free airport shuttle and parking with your new Kia purchase.
Held high above the heads of soccer supporters everywhere, the Soccer Scarf is a world-class icon of support. And Global Scarves can turn it into a high-profit, high-visibility, high-spirited fundraising idea for your club, organization, or school. Global Scarves has been producing high-quality, UK-knitted soccer scarves for over 40 years. They offer low prices for fundraising groups with no sacrifice on quality. A welcome change from chocolate. Find out more about Global Scarves. Contact Brad at globalscarves.com or visit globalscarves.com.
Not that your stylist at the salon isn't doing a good job, but man, you deserve the big red leather barber chair experience of Barber & Co. Here's how it works. Go to barberandco.ca. Book your appointment at one of the 4 barbershops in Gastown, Yaletown, the Financial District, or Cambion 18th. You can just walk in, too, and get your hair cut, hot shave, buzz cut, fade, or beard trim experience. A great wedding party idea, too. barberandco.ca.
Whether playing soccer on this continent or football on every other, Umbro is the name worn by top players and teams worldwide. Those same uniforms are available for your team or club at umbro.com. Umbro, proud to be the official supplier of Canada's men's and women's national teams, is celebrating 90 years of expertise in the game. If you want your club to play like the pros, dress them like the pros at umbro.com. Umbro, the heart and soul of football.
Airport, please, driver.
Right, we will be taking Main Street.
That's the other way.
Mm-hmm. And I'll drop you off at 10th Avenue.
But I don't want to be going...
That's where you get a connecting cab to your destination.
Connecting cab?
After a 3-hour layover.
What?
Have a nice day.
What if cabs work like some travel rewards cards? Avianers have the freedom to avoid unnecessary flight connections. Apply for the RBC Visa Infinite Avion card today and get 15,000 welcome points. Visit rbc.com/Avion for details. Some conditions apply.
This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on CIL 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
Vancouver Whitecaps played Portland at BC Place tonight. 3-0 the final in the Timbers' favor. Full story from the match coming up at 11:30 with Simon Fudge, as well as some post-match audio in the second half of the program. Major League Soccer scores now from the rest of the league, brought to you by Dayton Boots, DaytonBoots.com. Houston, 3-1 winners over Sporting Kansas City on Friday. Seattle beat Colorado 1-0. Seattle, a very fun team to watch, in my opinion. New England dismantling Toronto FC 3-0. Montreal over Columbus 2-0. Chicago 1-0 winners over FC Dallas. Tomorrow, DC United battling New York, and Chivas face LA, and that was the MLS scoreboard. Brought to you by Dayton Boots. Mention Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk and take 10% off quality handcrafted right here in BC. Dayton Boots, 2250 East Hastings. Dayton Boots, where the legend that lasts. DaytonBoots.com. It's starting 11 time. Tweet us your thoughts on the starting 11 on Twitter at Tyler Green FC. Show contributor and Goal.com writer Simon Fudge is at Simon Fudge 74 on Twitter. And number one on the starting 11. And we head to Europe to start. Which Champions League group are you most excited about, Simon?
Kind of caught me a little bit off guard with that first one because I never really got a chance to look at them as properly as I would have liked. If I can remember correctly, probably Manchester City's group, and the fact that they've been drawn with Bayern Munich probably looks the most intriguing of the ones that were drawn on Thursday. So I'd probably have to say that probably looks interesting because I know for a fact there were some pretty disappointing comments that came out of England, the fact that the champions of England have been drawn with such a powerful team and didn't get any favors in terms of a more favorable draw. So probably for me, I'll have to point at that one.
Yeah, the Bayern Munich, Manchester City, you've got the team from Russia and Moscow, you've got AS Roma. That one just has so many storylines, so much fun, very difficult group, kind of almost like a group of death. I also like the Zlatan group with PSG, Barcelona, and Ajax as kind of a fun little group as well. And then, of course, you get the continuing story about Arsenal and Borussia Dortmund playing one another yet again. So there's also that intrigue. But Group E for me, Roma, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, and CSKA Moscow is the group for me.
Number two, Cristiano Ronaldo was named UEFA's best player in Europe this week over Arjen Robben and Manuel Neuer of Bayern Munich. Was he the best player?
Yeah, I think so. I think, with the amount of goals that he scored, with what he did with his club team, I think that, he was able to do it in both league and in Champions League. And for me, he probably was the best player. I think it's up for debate as to when kind of when the season goes. Is it just for regular season, or do you look at the World Cup results as well? Because then, I could definitely see Manuel Neuer in there. But yeah, for me, Cristiano Ronaldo, he was the best player in Europe over the last year, I think.
I think so as well, and you have to take into consideration he played his part in Real Madrid winning the Champions League, and that is a UEFA competition. So certainly, as the best player in Europe, and an award determined through sort of votes, but by UEFA, I think Cristiano Ronaldo, based on what he did with his club in certainly UEFA competitions, and the biggest one of them all in winning it, I think was worthy of winning the award this year.
Number 3 on the starting 11, Xabi Alonso has joined Bayern Munich. How good will that make Bayern Munich, Simon?
It certainly will strengthen their midfield, and it almost seemed, particularly when he decided to retire from international football with Spain, that he might have been in the having an eye that he had another big move and a big place to go. I mean, he is done a very good job everywhere he's played. He made me a Real Sociedad fan, really, more than anything when he was there, before going to Liverpool, doing some things at Liverpool, winning the Champions League, obviously, and then doing it again with Real Madrid, even though not playing in the final. I think he makes them just that much stronger, and you'd almost have to look at them as, beyond the fact that they'll probably dominate domestically, the favorites to retain the Champions League again. So I think he is a big pickup by Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the move that obviously going from a big club to another big club, and I think he's going to make them that much better. You look at what they have in that midfield, the type of players that they have in the midfield. I think he can, even teach some of those younger guys a lot about how to play in that role. As well, you look at it and say, okay, Bastian Schweinsteiger, he's injured. We need somebody to fill in there. Oh, now we have Alonso. And then when Schweinsteiger comes back, that's just going to solidify you that much more. So that is a huge move, I think, for Bayern Munich to get in there and get Alonso in. And that is, I think, a key move for them. And like you said, they're going to be one of those teams that is going to be competing for both the league title, the domestic cup title, and Champions League as well.
Just want to say real quickly on that, I hope Xabi Alonso at least plays the once-a-year Basque Country Selects game, which they usually do around the Christmas break. So I hope he continues doing that. Number 4.
Well, Simon, they do in Germany. They do have that big Christmas break, so he's got that opportunity.
Well, I hope so. Absolutely. Number 4, Michel Platini has announced he will not stand against Sepp Blatter for the FIFA presidency and will run again for re-election as UEFA president. What should he have done?
Well, I would have liked to have seen him run against Sepp Blatter as opposed to basically just handing Blatter another, FIFA presidency for the next little while here. I would have liked to have seen that, but there was no way that he was going to win with 5 of the 6 countries basically already backing Blatter. So I think he did the smart thing and is going back to UEFA, which is probably what he's going to win. But I would have liked to have seen him step in there and compete and show that not everybody is happy with Sepp Blatter and show a little bit of, I don't know what you would call it, but, maybe some hostility to what Sepp Blatter and his cronies have been doing over the last few years and maybe show a little bit of that reform coming in.
I would agree. I'm actually somewhat disappointed that he's decided not to take on Sepp Blatter. Yeah, there needs to be a major shakeup at FIFA, and I think certainly from a credibility point of view and some of the things and initiatives that he's brought in at UEFA, it would have been very good for him to try and run for the FIFA presidency, because in a lot of ways he brings something to the table that would have at least given FIFA a chance to be shaken up and changed and be made into an organization that everybody in world soccer should be respecting. Because right now, in the last few years, it's just not been an organization that anyone can have a lot of respect for. And Sepp Blatter has overseen that. And I think in many ways, I think if you're a soccer fan anywhere in the world, you should be somewhat disappointed Michel Platini hasn't decided to put his name in the running for that role.
Number 5 on the starting 11, Wayne Rooney has officially been announced as England's new captain. Is it a good move to give him the armband?
Well, I think it's really come about because of his experience and the fact that he'll be surrounded by a very young group of players. But he's not a natural leader, to say the least. I mean, obviously, he's going to get a bit of grounding being the captain of Manchester United. So we will have to wait and see through the course of the season if he can really develop into someone that could be looked at as being a captain. The role itself is always looked at in England and in English soccer as being a very important one, and it comes with a certain amount of responsibilities both on and off the pitch. He's not necessarily had a squeaky clean of a career or life, to say the least. So it leaves a lot of question marks. But more than anything, the fact that he's never shown himself to be necessarily a natural leader, even on the pitch, leaves some doubt as to if it is really the right move to make him England captain.
For me, I think he's going to be okay. But for me, I would like to see with the captain's armband for England is Gary Cahill, who center back, a guy that's still only 28 years of age, a guy that's going to be in that group, I would think, for, at least another 4 years or so. So, he's a guy that isn't necessarily had a huge number of caps. He's only had 27, but he's a player that I think a lot of players respect with his hard type of play, the fact that he can carry the back line with him, and he's the guy that they're probably going to build a back line around. So I would love to see a guy like Gary Cahill. And for Wayne Rooney, for me, he's just a guy that's been he's been sort of one of those guys that can have moments of being a player that pouts, being a player that's unhappy, being a player that shows his anger on the field. And so, I don't think he's necessarily the best choice. I would have loved to have seen Gary Cahill get it.
Number 6, well, who is the biggest surprise to make the Canadian men's national team roster for the friendly against Jamaica on September 9th?
Well, for me, it's the continued players that keep getting picked from that well-known club in Canadian men's national team circles, the unattached Sands Club, that keep getting picked. But specifically, it's Adam Straith, a guy that didn't play a lot for the remainder of his season and has nowhere to play right now. He doesn't have a team to play for, and it's him just showing up and getting picked is a bit of a surprise for me. Another guy that is definitely a huge surprise is Ashton Morgan, who really can't even make the Toronto FC starting 18 or 18-man roster. So here's a guy that has dropped so much off Toronto FC's plans, yet he still keeps getting picked. At least he has somewhere where to practice, unlike a guy like Adam Straith.
There's much that I really do agree with you. I mean, the fact that there's a whole handful of players in this squad that's been picked that are not attached to any kind of, it just underlines the ongoing sad and pathetic state of Canadian soccer, really. And how can anyone really have any hopes for what the future is going to bring when you're looking at a squad like that, and half the players in the team don't even have a club, and if they do have a club, are they really getting any regular playing time? The fact that someone like Tosaint Ricketts can still get picked into and be playing international football with a complete lack of basic skill set that the man has, it makes it just increasingly more difficult for me time and again to take the Canadian men's national team seriously and really feel that they're really moving in the right direction. If we're continuing to have players picked of that substandard, and we are talking about a player that is of a substandard to play international soccer, it's just difficult to have any expectations at all that this team can do anything. So in a lot of ways, it's a roster that is more of the same, and overall very disappointing and depressing to look at.
Number 7 on the starting 11, which Canadian men's national team absentee surprised you most?
Well, I'm disappointed that Tesho Akindele didn't get in the squad. I do understand that there have been some obviously agreement between the CSA and FC Dallas regarding his availability, but I still think it would have been the right friendly for him to come into. He needs to be given the sense that he is valued at that, to be part of the squad at that level. This is a guy that's got more than one choice to make when it comes to international soccer, and if he keeps moving and progressing at the club level, there's a very good chance that a Nigeria or United States might just very well snap him up and give him a chance to get capped. So I think in some ways it would have been good for me to see Tesho Akindele play in this game. It would have been actually a very good friendly for him to match up against a big physical side in Jamaica. And it would have given some sense that, you are looking at the future a little bit with the team if he was included in it.
Player I'm disappointed in seeing that isn't there is Jonathan Osorio, and I know that they already picked a bunch of other guys from Toronto FC, and so he was sort of left off due to much the same, some of those CSA Toronto FC relations of, okay, well, you can pick some of these guys, but you've got to leave us some players to actually play some games with, and not like take the entire team. But for me, I would have much preferred to see Jonathan Osorio as opposed to some of these other guys from Toronto FC on the roster. I think he's going to be a guy that is going to be a big part of that Canadian men's national team moving forward over the next decade. And I would like to see him get in as many Canadian games as possible, friendlies and what have you. So for me, he's probably the biggest surprise absentee. And like you said, same with Tesho Akindele, some political reasons as to why those guys were probably left off.
Number 8, the Whitecaps announced earlier this week that the Portland match tonight was sold out. Should the Caps open up more seating for Cascadia Cup matches in the future?
Yeah, you know what? I'm still kind of with the Whitecaps on this one. Make it a sellout. Right now, I believe they've only had 2 games, I think, in total in Major League Soccer games anyway, that have not been sellouts so far this season. And I do like that marketing idea of having the game be something of a meaningful experience and making sure that you get your tickets early. And this game sold out 2 days ago. So no, it shouldn't. You know, if the game was sold out weeks ago, if all the games are sold out weeks ago, then yeah, start opening it up. But for me, you know, I look at a BC Lions game. There's places where the seating is so patchy and wide open, and there's big gaps in seating, and that doesn't look good at all. And hey, Timbers fans likes to travel. If you start opening up more seats, who's to say that you've now not sold 1,000 more tickets to a bunch of Timbers fans?
Well, I think certainly the entire capacity of the lower bowl for me should have been available. I mean, the buzz tonight, certainly in the first half, was something that really got me on the edge of my seat. And, you know, within about a space of probably the first 10 minutes, I was right into the game. It just felt so different, and it should as a Cascadia Cup derby. And that's full credit to all the fans that attended to the game tonight. I just feel that the segments that have been tarped that limit it down to that 21,000 capacity, why not open that up? Why not, you know, get that chance to try and fill that in? See if you can fill it in. See if you can get 26 or 27,000 in for that game. I think for a game like this and for other Cascadia Cup games there, I think it's worth giving that a try because it would have been very beneficial. It's only just a gradual opening, I think, and if they go down that road, who's to say that wouldn't give them a more positive sign to the club that they could actually open up more seats and use more of the stadium's capacity in the future.
Well, after tonight's performance, I'm pretty sure they're happy that they didn't open up more seats for people to see that. Number 9 on the starting 11, Whitecaps re-signed Jordan Harvey to a contract extension on Thursday. Would you, Simon, protect him in the MLS expansion draft?
Yes, I think so, probably. I mean, he does bring a veteran presence. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this is one of those players that, you know, the Carl Robinson and his staff wrestles with in terms of do they leave him protected or not. He could be one of the last decisions of those protected players that they make come early December. But I think at the end of the day, I think, yes, you do protect him. I think he does bring a level of experience that has been very valuable. He's been, for the most part, a very steady player here. And I think he shows a good certain amount of leadership qualities in the squad and know-how. So I think in many ways, yeah, I think as much as it might be one that could take a bit of time for them to ultimately decide and maybe be the very last decision to make, I think you do protect them.
When I look at what the Whitecaps are looking at in terms of the two teams, you could look at Jeb Brovsky being there in New York already and think, okay, is he going to play that left side? Do we take the chance? But for me, I protect your best 11 players, regardless of what position they play. So you might have 2 guys in the same position that you're protecting, but you protect your best 11 players. And for my money, that means that Jordan Harvey is in that protected list. He is a guy that I don't think you want to lose because, you know, as much as there's a lot of hope that you know, Sam Adekubi is going to be one of those big players for you down the road, is he ready to step in? You know what you have with Jordan Harvey right now, and I think he would be a good player at least one more year, and maybe you could trade him once you know that Sam Adekubi is going to be able to take over and take that next step and be a regular starting player. But for me right now, I protect Jordan Harvey in the expansion draft.
Number 10, what was the worst part of the Whitecaps' defeat tonight to Portland Timbers?
I was really struggling with this one because there weren't a lot of good things that happened, and there was a lot of bad things that happened. And I think the worst part for me tonight was just the fact that the Portland fans were there in huge numbers, were a lot of very much parts of the game louder than the Vancouver supporters, and the Vancouver Whitecaps were literally dismantled in front of this invasion up from Oregon. And so for me, that I think was the worst part.
Yeah, there was that, and for me, it was the second half that just ebbed and flowed away. It was almost like it was a washout, and an Oregon washout at that. I can't get over the awful, if not atrocious, defending on all three goals that they conceded, particularly the second and third goals. Matthias Laba, I mean, people are going to be looking at it, and I tweeted it earlier. Darlington Nagbe was the man over Omar Salgado every day of the week. Who won that draft in 2011? It's definitely Portland every day. I mean, he went around Matthias Laba like the standing still that led to the third goal tonight. I mean, it just, the defending was atrocious, and it was atrocious last week as well. And it was just in a lot of ways almost unacceptable that happened. I mean, tonight, in many ways, I think for a lot of fans, and it should feel this way, was a complete and utter humiliation. And it's almost amazing that ended up being the case, because at halftime, I don't think any of us would have anticipated. I thought the game was relatively even and whatnot. I think the Caps had more of the play in the first half, but they just didn't take their chances. They've just not been shooting from distance on a regular basis. Not sure why they're not doing so, but they let Portland get grip of the game as soon as they came back at the start of second half. And full credit to them. They've now put themselves back, and that was a psychological blow by Portland tonight, and it's one that I don't think this Whitecaps team is going to overcome, and I think, unfortunately, they're probably going to miss the playoffs as a result.
Well, that leads us to our next question, Simon. Starting 11 question, number 11, the final one. What can the Whitecaps realistically accomplish this season? A playoff spot? Win the Voyageurs Cup standings for the 2014 regular season, the Cascadia Cup, or none of the above?
I think in a lot of ways, if they don't make the playoffs, I don't think they win the Voyageurs Cup standings, because I think, if Toronto get in ahead of them in terms of a playoff, that will mean that they've got a better record than them. So in fact, in a lot of ways, miss the playoffs. I think they also miss out on going to the Champions League next year. They may still very well win the Cascadia Cup. I mean, this result leaves the door open for Seattle to be able to claim something, and certainly the way they're playing right now, they may have every chance of doing it, but they'll have to do so by getting that last result against Vancouver to make it. So in a lot of ways, I'm probably edging now towards none of the above.
You know what? I think the Whitecaps are, well, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but with the way that things are happening with Toronto FC and the way that the East is, I think that the Whitecaps could, in fact, still claim the Voyageurs Cup standings for the 2014 regular season. I think they are going to end up losing the Cascadia Cup. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're somehow going to manage to still get those Voyageurs Cup points in order to win that between Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. Simon, we will talk to you again in the second half around, I guess in about an hour from now.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Simon Fudge joining us from BC Place Stadium as he's going to write some stuff for Goal.com, write a post-match recap, but he will rejoin us to talk more about this Whitecaps game in the second half of the program coming up at 10:30 this evening. Right now, Kia Vancouver, they've got a selfie contest happening to win yourself Whitecaps tickets, autographed jerseys, and card detailing. All the details on our Facebook page at facebook.com/SoccerTalkVan. And don't forget about our Fantasy League contest, the MLS Fantasy League contest. It's presented by Umbro in our August quest. Hey, it ends this weekend. Who's the hottest? Visit facebook.com/SoccerTalkVan for the details on how to join the league, and we'll wrap up the August contest next weekend. It is all presented by Umbro, proud to be the official supplier of the Canadian men's and women's national teams, celebrating 90 years of expertise in the game. If you want your club to play like the pros, dress them like the pros at Umbro.com. Umbro, the heart and soul of football. The Premier League offered a few surprises this morning, and Manchester United, they continue to limp through the beginning of the season. We'll speak with Bobby McMahon about the start of the Premier League season next.
Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Talk 650 and at Tyler Green FC. This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on Sea Isle 650.
The Straight Razor Shave, a leading man classic. Steady hand coaxing the rugged face back to smoothness. This nearly lost art has found revival at Barber & Co. Hot towels, straight edge blade, and your face. It's an experience that reminds you you're alive. You're a man in the company of history's finest men. Start at barberandco.ca. Pick your barber shop in Yaletown, Gastown, the Financial District, or Cambie and 18th, and relax into the big leather chair for the shave of your life.
Whether playing soccer on this continent or football on every other, Umbro is the name worn by top players and teams worldwide. Those same uniforms are available for your team or club at Umbro.com. Umbro, proud to be the official supplier of Canada's men's and women's national teams, is celebrating 90 years of expertise in the game. If you want your club to play like the pros, dress them like the pros at Umbro.com. Umbro, the heart and soul of football.
The 2015s have arrived at Kia Vancouver, so come score a 2015 with ultra-low weekly payments, 0 down and 0% financing for 84 months, or a huge clear-out deal with up to $7,000 in cash rebates on select 2014 models with their no-bull pricing. But hurry, limited time offer at Kia Vancouver, Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon.
And remember, only Kia Vancouver gives you free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and free airport shuttle and parking with your new Kia purchase.
Held high above the heads of soccer supporters everywhere. The soccer scarf is a world-class tradition, and Global Scarves can get you into the game. From English soccer clubs to Canadian hockey teams, Global Scarves has been producing high-quality UK-knitted soccer scarves for over 40 years. Because you're dealing directly, you get the lowest price, and your order shipped in as little as 15 days. Global Scarves are a high-margin, high-spirited fundraising idea. Contact Brad at globalscarves.com or visit globalscarves.com.
Money. It's your money with Fred Snyder.
You take 100 people to start at Equal today. At the age of 25, by the time they end up at 65, 1 is rich, 4 well-to-do, 5 are still working, 36 are dead, and the rest might just as well be dead. There's 54 of them. They're dead broke, dependent on family and state. And the main reason is they don't have the knowledge, they didn't have the financial plan, and we're providing you with all that here on this show.
Fred Snyder, Sunday mornings 9 to 11 on Smooth and Easy, Sea Isle 650. We're back. This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on Sea Isle 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
Bobby McMahon will join us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk in just a few minutes to talk all things English Premier League. Some interesting results from earlier today. We'll get to that in just a moment. And, of course, who's going to be transferred? Which is the best transfer signing so far in the English Premier League this season to date? Bobby McMahon will give us his thoughts in just a minute. But first, let's take a look at the English Premier League scoreboard. The English scoreboard brought to you by the Donnelly Group, housing many of the supporters groups here in Vancouver. Chelsea at the New Oxford, Manchester City at the Blackbird, Spurs over at the Bimini, Manchester United at the Lamplighter, and, of course, Liverpool at the Butcher and Bullock. You can find those guys at their supporters' pubs at DonnellyGroup.ca. And we'll take a quick look at the scoreboard and some of the scores. It was Manchester United heading to Burnley, picking up a single point, and they'll take it at this point. They'll take anything at this point. Scoreless 0-0 there. Manchester City losing to Stoke 1-0. Asmir Begovic having to come up with some huge saves there. Newcastle, Crystal Palace 3-3. QPR were 1-0 winners over Sunderland. Swansea 3-0 winners over West Brom. Swansea top spot in the Premier League along with Chelsea, who were in an epic battle with Everton. 6-3 the final there for Chelsea. And Southampton pick up a 3-1 victory over West Ham. 3 games tomorrow. Aston Villa hosting Hull City. Tottenham Hotspurs battling Liverpool, and Leicester facing Arsenal. All right, time now for the Kia Vancouver showroom interview. And today we are joined with Bobby McMahon, Kia Vancouver, only at Kia Vancouver. Free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and get this, free lifetime airport shuttle and parking service, Southwest Marine Drive at YukonKiaVancouver.com. Bobby McMahon joining us, of course, with Sportsnet, Forbes.com, Soccerly.com, SoccerReportExtra.com, and on Twitter at BobbySoccerRep. Bobby, thanks again for joining us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk.
Thank you, Tyler. Glad to be back.
Now, obviously, there were a few shocks this morning, I think. I think you look at a 9-goal game, and that's a bit of a surprise. You look at a team then. Another one is Stoke City beating Manchester City 1-0. Is that maybe the first signs that we see that maybe Manchester City aren't as good as, well, I think everyone thought they were?
It's certainly unusual for Manchester City to lose at home. They've done it so infrequently. You remember that Chelsea loss, and they've been few and far between apart from that. But it's still very early in the season. I think there's a certain amount of rustiness. There's a lot of points to be made up, a lot of points to be lost. And I know this is going to sound, a little bit strange saying it after it happened, but going into that game this morning, I kind of had a feeling about Stoke that I didn't think they'd necessarily beat them. I thought they actually had a quite good chance of maybe nipping a point, though, because I'd watched them against Aston Villa, and I thought they didn't have much punch up front, but I thought they actually really quite didn't deserve to lose that first game of the season. And the second game of the season, although Hull played with 10 men, I thought Stoke, it was very interesting the way that Mark Hughes is really evolving the team and changing the team. They've got a lot more pace in that side than they ever had under Tony Pulis. They're still trying to retain that kind of hard-nosed component to their game, but Mark Hughes had some success in the second half of the season last year, and it looks like he's continued to evolve that team as well. So they held out. You look at the possession stats and you look at the pressure they're under and all the information, and anybody who watched the game would have thought on another day Manchester City would have won the game. But it's these kind of results we get early in the season that it's sometimes difficult to read, or it's problematic to read too much into them. Other than it's another reminder that on certain days things just don't go your way, and if you give up an easy goal, and that was it was a good goal by Diouf, but it was also a series of errors by Manchester City to allow them to run that length of the park, and Joe Hart didn't look particularly great on it either. Just a reminder that if you're not on your game, then somebody's liable to come along and pinch the 3 points from you.
No, meanwhile, just an epic battle back and forth between Chelsea and Everton. 9 goals in total. I don't think at any given time you really knew who was going to win that game once the goals started flowing. I think one of those entertaining games for probably all the wrong reasons, with just some poor defending. But, I know that we can't read too much, but do you see anything from those two teams saying it might get tough for them at certain times of the season?
Typical Jose Mourinho, right? Everybody who watched that game walked away from it going, what a game! And Jose Mourinho goes, I didn't enjoy it because we lost 3 bad goals. Oh, come on, Jose, take a game, eh? That's the great thing is, you're never going to get 9 goals with great defence. That's the payoff for bad defending. It was an epic game, and some of the goals as well. There were some defensive errors, but there's some very good goals in there. The way that Diego Costa and Fabregas linked up is very nice. Stephen Naismith worked tremendously hard for Everton. Morales' headed goal, Eto'o coming on. There was just so many good things. Now, having said that, Everton defence looked awful. And they looked bad in that second half against Arsenal as well, and they lost 2 goals to Leicester in the first game. And I just wonder, Phil Jagielka has been a very good player. I'm not writing off Phil Jagielka, but he was terrible today. He was awful. And I wouldn't be surprised if Martinez turns around and starts making some changes there, because partly Jagielka, Distan didn't have a particularly good game either. And that centre of that Everton defence has been really, really important for Everton down through the years, through the David Moyes years and now into Roberto Martinez. And if they don't have a strong defence, then they're going to be very, very hard pushed to come any place close to where they finished last year, and particularly in terms of the points total. So early in the season, and Everton did start slow last year. I think they started with 3 draws last year. This time around, they've started with 2 draws and a loss. But if there was anything, I would say that's perhaps a little bit of a warning sign that. And Everton's fans, I think, could be a little bit concerned about that sloppiness at the centre of the defence.
Now, you mentioned him, Diego Costa, who had a pretty good game in this one. Can he go on and be the top scorer in the Premier League here in his first year?
How long before he gets sent off? He's going to get sent off, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just got that kind of feel about him. Unless he settles down, somebody's just going to niggle him enough, and the referees are going to, I think, be quite willing to bring out a red card for him. He does what all great centre forwards do, great strikers do. He's brilliant playing on the shoulder of the last defender. Thierry Henry was an absolute master at it. Fernando Torres in his heyday at Liverpool was absolutely fantastic at it as well. Sergio Aguero is another one. Drogba was good at it as well. Probably Drogba wasn't as good as Costa is at it, but he's deceptively quick, and he does. Although he does get caught offside, and there again, great centre forwards do, because they're always playing that half a foot or that extra couple of inches and just trying to take advantage of him. He's absolutely brilliant at that. And as I think the fact he's got Fabregas in the lineup, I don't think Chelsea have ever, in the time I can go back to 10 years, back to the Abramovich, start of the Abramovich years through Ranieri, Mourinho, his first time around, through all the managers, Ancelotti, Andre Villas-Boas, Di Matteo, Benitez. I can't remember Chelsea having a player like Cesc Fabregas. He's got the cunning, he's got the ability to unlock a defence. Chelsea, I think, through when they had Lampard in his heyday there, were really a kind of team that just overpowered you with strength and Lampard shooting. Fabregas, I think, has got the ability to unpick a defence, and that's where Costa, I think, is going to absolutely lap it up. He did very well last year with Koke and the feeding him at Atletico Madrid. And this year, I think it looks like it's going to be Cesc Fabregas at Stamford Bridge.
You're listening to Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk here on CL 650. My name's Tyler Green. We're speaking with Bobby McMahon, who, his resume includes Sportsnet, Forbes.com, Soccerly.com, Soccer Report, Extra.com, and you can find him on Twitter. Bobby Soccer Rep is what he is on Twitter. Bobby, as we switch gears now to Manchester United, where we've talked about the good, now let's talk about the bad. Well, they earned only their second point earlier today with a scoreless draw against Burnley. What's wrong with United? Is it simply just that learning process of Louis van Gaal?
I think Van Gaal gives them some faith that it will improve, and Van Gaal's track record is one of improvement after a lot of hard work. But frankly, you can talk about 3 at the back, you can talk about 4 at the back, you can talk about 4-4-2, you can talk about 4-3-3, 4-5-1. You can talk about all that stuff. Bottom line is, that Manchester United team today didn't look any different than the Manchester United team against under David Moyes. It lacked fluidity, it lacked the ability to move the ball quickly. There wasn't a lot of running off the ball. They looked like a team that were just sort of devoid of confidence. That's for sure. But I think Jim Beglin mentioned this on the TV broadcast. He was a co-commentator. It's just that every time a Manchester United player gets the ball, it looks like he's overthinking instead of just doing things intuitively. And that was very much the pattern under Moyes as well. Like there's certainly different systems with Moyes and Van Gaal, but the outcome is the same. It is they both have teams that really are not overthinking, but they really are not playing intuitively. They're not moving the ball quickly enough, and in the Premier League, if you don't move the ball quickly enough, you're going to find packed defences, and when you find packed defences, it's very difficult to break them down. You look at it today as well, like how many really, really good chances did Manchester United create? Not very many, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a while. I think if we give it to Christmas, I think we're going to be in a much better position to judge Van Gaal's performance at that point. And the bottom line is he's in a better position taking over from Moyes than Moyes was taking over from Ferguson, because I think everybody realises now. And then that last year under Ferguson, he performed a minor miracle by winning the league with that squad. And now it's a case of Van Gaal as he retools and tries to move United forward. It's going to take some time to be able to do that. You saw it with Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers that year he came in. It was a very difficult first 6-7 months before it started really showing up in the second half of the season, and then you really saw it taking shape the year after that.
Now, meanwhile, I think probably United fans disappointed with the single point. I'm sure Burnley was ecstatic about the single point. Do they have enough goals or anything for that matter to keep them up in the Premier League? And this could be a one-word answer if you'd like.
I don't think so. It's not one word. I just don't think they do. Because I think there's a couple of things, and we saw this with Burnley, we saw this with Blackpool as well. These teams in previous years have got off to really, really good starts and still gone down. And I think you look at Leicester have got a bit more pace in their team, I think, than Burnley do. And I'm not saying Burnley are a bad team, I just don't think they're a Premier League team. They've got some pretty useful-looking players, but do they have the quality to go through the 38-game slog? And that's the thing is, you can get the point at the beginning of the season and you might be able to play teams close, but doing it game after game after game, and then you hit one of these slides when you lose 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it becomes very difficult for these teams because they don't have the quality to actually regroup and turn that situation around. They're almost this magnetic pull towards the bottom. So we've been surprised before. Crystal Palace did not look good at the beginning of last season. Tony Pulis came in, turned them around. So it can be done. It's just very unlikely, I think.
We're speaking with Bobby McMahon here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on CL 650. My name's Tyler Green. And Bobby, one of those teams near the top of the table, or at the top of the table, is Swansea. How long do they stay atop the Premier League?
I think Swansea fans would be the first ones to tell you that you look at they went to Manchester United, they got 3 points there, that was good. They've won their last 2 games, pretty straightforward, really. Particularly today, I thought against a very disappointing West Brom team. Game was pretty much over before it started. Nathan Dyer getting a really early goal, took it very, very well, and then Rowledge taking an absolute superb goal. Absolutely, probably the goal of the weekend. I would expect, but it's a little bit of a different Swansea side as well. It's Gary Monk has changed this team up. They've evolved into a much more. I think they've continued to work on what Michael Laudrup was trying to get them to become, which is a much more direct team, not passing for passing's sake. They're John Joe Shelby. I know he can often be regarded as a sort of figure of fun, but I think Swansea last year they picked him up. They're playing him. They're continuing to play him. They've shown faith in him. They're going to live with these errors. He's going to live with his mistakes. But I think he's going to turn out to be, over the years, to be a terrific signing for Swansea, because there's just so few players that can play that kind of hard-nosed style, but also the ability to pass the ball, get forward, get goals. I think he is going to turn out to be a terrific signing for them. Plus, you've got the 2 wingers there that are playing well. You've got Montero who came in after the World Cup. It's almost like he's pushing Dyer and Routledge to new levels, knowing that he's sitting in the wings ready to take their place should they hit any problems. And of course, Sigurdsson's back. And if there's ever a team and a player made for each other, I think it's Sigurdsson. Sigurdsson and Swansea just seem to get the best out of each other, and he's involved in the goals. I think his time at Tottenham There was too much chopping and changing. He was never given a really good long run in the Tottenham side. He gets that at Swansea, and I think he's going to turn out to be a great re-signing of Swansea, having been there before on loan. But the deal that took Vorm and Ben Davies to White Hart Lane and Sigurdsson going the other way, great deal for Swansea, I think.
Brendan Rodgers picks up Mario Balotelli. There's talk he could get the start tomorrow, this weekend when Liverpool play. In your mind, is Balotelli worth the risk and the gamble?
He's worth it for us, isn't he?
Yeah,
Otherwise, we'd have
perfect.
nobody to talk about. He's brilliant for people who comment on the game because he's just the gift that keeps on giving. He's always going to be someplace close to controversy. I think this is the issue though, and the issue for fans and journalists alike. We like him because of the controversy, but how much emotional turmoil does he actually cause within the team? And I think if there's one concern, it might be that has Brendan Rodgers does he almost feel like he's infallible now in terms of being able to turn stray players around and getting them headed in the right direction, or is Balotelli going to be the rock that actually breaks Brendan Rodgers, or is Brendan Rodgers going to be the rock that breaks Mario Balotelli?
We're talking with Bobby McMahon here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. My name's Tyler Green. You can join us every Saturday here on CL 650, 10 p.m. to midnight. Bobby, transfer deadline coming up here on Monday. We talked a little bit about Fabregas and how you think that he's sort of that key cog for Chelsea's chances. Is he the most significant signing by an EPL team so far?
I think Chelsea have done some really good work. I think the Costa one, the Fabregas one, we don't know if it's going to be like Remy or not, whether they're going to be able to sign him with Torres moving on. The word is tonight that Arsenal look like they might be trying to hijack that bid and trying to sign Remy, so that's a possibility. I think Fabregas is a terrific sign. I think there's an interesting kind of pattern beginning to show up here, though, as well, and probably it's something to do with the level of transfer fees. But you look at somebody like Samuel Eto'o going to Everton, like we know he's sort of in the veteran stage now, but Everton pick him up for £70,000 a week, which is, what's that, probably $110,000 a week. Good wages, but not outrageous compared with some of the wages in the Premier League. But they picked him up on a Bosman signing. You look at Frank Lampard, freed by Chelsea, picked up Manchester City before he goes to New York. Drogba going back to Chelsea. There really seems to be a pattern here evolving of clubs willing to pay relatively high wages to players at the end of their career as long as they can get them free. And I wonder if that's going to be something. Fernando Torres, to some extent, is another example of that as well. He's moved to Milan, although that's a little bit more complicated and complex. But you just wonder if that might be a pattern we see continuing right through Monday. Some veteran players, maybe with transfer fees involved, but teams just willing to go with a proven commodity, even though it's a little bit older, at what they would see as a bargain fee. So I think you're going to see a lot of deals done on Monday. Not necessarily a lot of big deals, but I think there's going to be a lot of loan deals and there's going to be a lot of smaller deals. But because they're smaller, I don't think necessarily makes them insignificant.
Your math, by the way, Bobby, so much better and faster than I was able to do.
That was a wild guess by me.
And that is why Bobby McMahon writes for Forbes.com as well, a contributor on Sportsnet, Soccerly.com, SoccerReportExtra.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at BobbySoccerRep. Bobby, just a couple more minutes here quickly. Good or bad for you, which team will be the biggest surprise in terms of where they finish the season?
Biggest surprise? I don't think we're going to. I can't see anybody turning the league upside down. I can't see anybody doing a Liverpool from last year. I think if there's going to be a surprise, it's going to be kind of on the downside rather than the upside. I think Everton. I wouldn't be surprised if Everton dropped back to that maybe 60-point mark this year. And I'm not just saying that because of the start of the season, but I wrote a piece at the beginning of the season that said, really, you can look at Lukaku being signed by Everton and some of the other moves they made, but really, Gareth Barry, Lukaku, that's not really an improvement on last year. That's just solidifying what they had last year. So you look at that situation and say, have Everton actually improved? Plus they've got European competition, so they might find it a little bit tougher this year. I can't see the top seven. The order might change, but I can't see the numbers. These top seven actually somebody breaking into the top seven. I think Southampton are actually going to be fine. A lot of people jumping on them at the beginning of the season, thinking suggesting they're going to be relegated because they lost so many players.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other thing you've got to remember in this, Tyler, there's a lot of bad teams in the league as well.
Very true.
And when I say bad teams, I mean bad teams over a 38-game schedule. We all know and we all hear about it on any given weekend or any given day that the team that's bottom of the league can beat the team at the top of the league. That happens in almost every league. The bottom line to it is, can you do it continually through a season? And you just see that teams get into this sort of mire that they can't get out of, and they just become bad teams, or they become worse teams as the season goes on. I don't see that with Southampton. I think Ronald Koeman's got enough quality there, and they believe in their football and they play good football. So I think maybe the surprise for a lot of people is I think Southampton they finished 8th last year. I'd be surprised if they dropped down below 12th, and I think, considering a lot of people have picked them for relegation, that might be considered a surprise.
Bobby, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. We'll talk again really soon.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks again, Bobby. That was Bobby McMahon. He writes, he works for Sportsnet, does some TV work for them, writes for, of course, Forbes.com, Soccerly.com, SoccerReportExtra.com, and, of course, on Twitter at BobbySoccerRep. Bobby, very, very excited. He's talking to him just off air beforehand. Not sure if he's going to be able to get to sleep tonight. Dundee, his team, taking on Celtic tomorrow morning, very, very early in the morning for us here on the West Coast. But Bobby is going to be up. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to sleep tonight. So good luck to your team, Bobby. Good luck to Dundee tomorrow for Bobby McMahon. And thanks again for joining us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. Coming up in the second half of the program, Simon Fudge will join us, and we'll get all the latest from Vancouver Whitecaps match from earlier tonight as the Whitecaps played host to Portland Timbers FC. We'll also talk to David Sandals. Concussion with youth, very much a big issue, and leagues are going to be getting underway here over the next couple of weeks for a lot of youth teams. So some new things involved in concussion. So we'll talk to David Sandals about that coming up here at 11 p.m. Up next, though, hey, we talked a little bit about it with Bobby. Transfer window, it's almost closed, and we'll give you all the latest news and rumors from around the globe next.
Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTalk650 and at Tyler Green FC. This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on CIL 650.
The 2015s have arrived at Kia Vancouver, so come score a 2015 with ultra-low weekly payments, 0 down and 0% financing for 84 months, or a huge clear-out deal with up to $7,000 in cash rebates on select 2014 models with their no-bull pricing. But hurry, limited time offer at Kia Vancouver, Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon.
And remember, only Kia Vancouver gives you free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and free airport shuttle and parking with your new Kia purchase.
Not that your stylist at the salon isn't doing a good job, but man, you deserve the big red leather barber chair experience of Barber & Co. Here's how it works. Go to barberandco.ca. Book your appointment at one of the 4 barbershops in Gastown, Yaletown, the Financial District, or Cambie and 18th. You can just walk in, too, and get your hair cut, hot shave, buzz cut, fade, or beard trim experience. A great wedding party idea, too. barberandco.ca.
It's a 5-hour drive to Grandma's house. That's 10 car songs, 15 games of 20 questions, 20 answers to the same question.
Are we there yet?
Not yet.
And 1 stop to refuel.
The quality gasolines at Esso stations.